Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Shea Dixon. Shea, we are here after a 37-17 win for LSU over Oklahoma to end the regular season at 8-4 overall. It's 12:15 in the morning. How are you doing?
They saved the best for last.
Yes, they did.
Was
Arguably
this
their
the
best game of the year.
was it the best game of the season? Yes or no? I say yes.
I say yes.
All things considered. Reminder: just a week ago, 7 days ago, really, Matty B. Prior to kickoff against Vanderbilt, they had lost 3 in a row, and people were talking about 6-6 and like everything falling apart. And we'll do a podcast to talk about. They rebounded. They got these 2 wins, which were convincing, both of them, even though the Vandy score was close. They finish in the top 6 of the newly expanded SEC, which is what, 14 teams now? So how many teams?
16 teams.
Yeah. So solid finish. About 1 billion teams finish 5-3. Bama, A&M, LSU, Ole Miss, South Carolina, Missouri. But an 8-4 finish. As I said, we'll talk about that in another pod, but I did want to start out by saying very solid close to the season when we knew a week ago they had to have it. And they came out knowing that this Oklahoma team just crushed Bama and they smashed Oklahoma. This was the best win they've had all year.
Yeah, I mean, the only comparable thing was the Arkansas win on the road.
Yeah, this feels better.
This does feel better, probably because it was at home. But this was dominant, man. I mean, really, the only hiccup was that fumble that was returned for 7. Outside of that,
If it's not that, what are they? It's 37-10.
yeah,
I know that's playing that game, but
yeah,
they scored 1 touchdown on offense. We'll get into that, but like the defense for Matty B, how much we've talked about them this year, talent wise, and what they're doing with it. To fire an entire staff, hire new coaches in January, and have the output that they had. And again, we're teasing a lot of this for a future pod, but I'm going to guess that if we rewound it, Matty B, and said they were one of the worst defenses in college football last year, we said they had to cut like the notable stat categories in half. I think they did do that. They were in the 50s last I checked with most things. You keep up with the SP plus stuff and all of that, but
yeah,
by and large, this defense cut in half what they did a year ago, which was the worst in the NCAA. That's all you could ask. But there were so many games they carried the team. Tonight was one of them, but it gets drowned out because Nuss came back and had a big night as well.
yeah. I mean, we can.
Okay, where do we start?
It doesn't take long to talk about the defense. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on the defense, even though they were excellent. To your point, only allowed 10 points. Jackson Arnold, 14 of 21 for 110 yards. I mean, completely kept him in the pass game in check. 50 of those yards came on one pass play over the top. So, the other 20 passes go for 60 yards. I mean, that's 3 yards an attempt. That's incredible. I came into this game expecting a lower scoring game, and my prediction was 20-17 LSU. Obviously, the 17 held up, but it was an even better defensive showing than that. The discipline and the toughness that I raved about with this defense against Vanderbilt, they replicated it. I mean, completely replicated. Did what Alabama really couldn't do. Like, they really slowed down this rushing attack for Oklahoma. And even, with the sacks, Oklahoma only averaged 4.5 yards per rush. Without the sacks, it was around 5.5. So decent game on the ground for Oklahoma, but that's not nearly enough when you consider that they couldn't throw the ball. So I also wrote in my preview that, or maybe it was the final lines, Alabama had only had 5 drives, scoring 5 touchdown drives of over 40 yards in the past 5 games. And yeah, they had 1 tonight, and that was it.
This was the most the OU defense had given up all year in point wise, 37. So great showing by the offense. But again, Blake Baker and this defense and the players, and the staff, they executed the game plan. They went out there. Whit Weeks was on fire. Devon Keys again goes out there with Greg Penn. The 3 of them at linebacker go 15 tackles for Weeks, 10 for Keys, the true freshman out of Lone Star State, and then Penn with 9. But Penn with a 1.5 tackles for loss and a QB hurry. Keys had a tackle for loss. Weeks his stat line was ridiculous. He had every single thing you could imagine: forced fumble, quarterback hurry, a couple tackles for loss, sack, 9 solo tackles. Thought Don McKinley had some good reps.
Yes.
At DT as a freshman, Ahmad Bro the same. Kudos, Sage Ryan got a pick. I mean, some guys who were veterans stepped up with some big moments tonight. We could go on and on again. We'll talk more about reflecting back, but Zy Alexander, so huge for this team the last 2 years. Kudos to the defense, Matty B, because
Yeah.
they shredded this OU team, shredded Bama last week by running the football with the quarterback and the running back. And that was a tandem that like A&M killed LSU with, Bama killed LSU with. And it was like, uh-oh, if they just do that again, they're in bad shape. And oh no, LSU had a plan for it. And they kept Jackson Arnold in one touchdown I did not see coming.
Yeah, it was really impressive. The last thing I'll add, you touched on it, McKinley having his best game of the year.
Yeah.
It was good to see, similar to that Arkansas game, Weeks get loose. You know, we had seen him kind of, there are times, I think I mentioned it, where he gets kind of buried in the run game and whatnot, but when he is set free, kind of when he is free to be that rover type, he is just tremendous. He just plays with such a great speed and velocity to his game that it's really remarkable. So great to see them get back on track. Sage had the first interception of his career, so shout out to him. And yeah, I think that covers the defense. That was a really, really good game, really good pair of games for this defense to end on a positive note, and continue to believe in what Blake Baker is doing on that side.
Yeah, if I'm an LSU fan, I'm really excited. There were a lot of games that kind of hidden in their stretches where the LSU D really carried the team, whether a win or a loss, where I think you could look back and say, this defense outperformed the offense at times this year. Nobody would have saw that coming.
Yeah. I mean, the Ole Miss game in particular is the one I always think of, where it's like the old offense just had nothing, and the defense.
They never led all the way until the final shot or the final
overtime.
catch, if that means anything. Like, so
Yeah.
do you ever lead? Minus the game was just over. So
yeah, 0 seconds.
We want to remind everyone, all of our post-game coverage on the Bengal Tiger is $1 if you sign up, but every week presented by this season LSU Snacks. They've blown up, but the Bengal Tiger game day content from start to finish, you guys, is backed by LSU Snacks. And with the purchase of an LSU Snacks, whether the bar or the cookies, you're directly supporting LSU's NIL efforts. And that's just a way for people to get involved. We're not having to donate to the collective and you don't know where it goes. You buy the snacks, you get your protein bars, you get your chocolate chip cookies, which I love. And you also donate directly to LSU and the collective. LSUsnacks.com. If you read any of our game day content, you'll see all the stuff in there. But we are big fans. We've been rocking with them all year. We'll do it through the off season. And you'll start seeing their stuff in a lot of grocery stores here soon. But go to LSUsnacks.com. The Win Bar, they've got all the licensing for LSU. So the Win Bites are the chocolate chip cookies. The Win Bar is the chocolate chip snack bar. 6 grams of protein, 180 calories. The cookies are great. Plant-based. We can't support them enough. They've been great to us this year. And we will continue to rock with them through basketball and baseball season. So LSUsnacks.com. And if you see it in the grocery store, buy them because it's going directly to LSU athletics. And Matty B, with that said, flip it to offense. We gave the MVP, you did, to Garrett Nussmeier, your boy.
Partially Colin as well.
our graphic designer, Colin. Nuss leaves. Worst case scenario, he broke his collarbone, right? Like clavicle injury, whatever. X-rays are negative. He comes back. He had thrown a touchdown prior. He throws a touchdown immediately again, uncorks a 40-something yarder. Chris Hilton gets a little maybe co-MVP here because finally, right? It was like, when's that moment coming? And 2 touchdown night. Did he 2 targets?
Just 2. Yeah. 2 targets.
Both of them were 40-something yards, 40 and 40-something 5 yards or so.
Yeah.
But 2 touchdowns. He kind of jumped on one. He didn't jump on the other. It didn't matter. He caught them both.
Yeah. This is
Love to see it though.
This is what we were talking about for like the first 6 weeks of the season, where we just kept hammering the point of being like, gosh, if this team just had like a over the top guy, if this team just had Chris Hilton to at least just give them a threat.
And the timing was great between the two tonight, because it wasn't all on Hilton. Nuss was overthrowing him last week like twice.
Like this was if Hilton had played and been in a rhythm at any point this year, you were incredibly high on him coming into the year, which I think was very valid. The coaching staff was extremely high on him. That I even if I have questions about the technical ability, it doesn't matter. He runs like 23 miles per hour. That's what this offense needed. They needed that from Caden Durham. They needed that from Chris Hilton. They needed those game breakers that could take the top off of defense or score in one play from 45 yards out. That's what Chris Hilton gives you, and that's what we saw tonight in the last game of the season. And we hope he can stay healthy for next year, because that's what this offense just needs. Like, as much as we love CJ Daniels, Aaron Anderson, all these Mason Taylors, like, you got to have that one guy that's like, oh crap, we have to have safety help over the top. We have to be in bail coverage, getting way off the ball with this guy. That's what Chris Hilton provides. And I was just so happy that we were able to see that. And we were able to see Nussmeier connect with him, just give him a couple of those deep shots, because those are game-changing plays. They're absolutely game-changing plays. So, yes, you are right. Give him co-MVP, however we want to phrase it, because those two plays were instrumental in this win. So, yes, Chris Hilton, great job. Great job.
Very, very solid.
Not number one fan. Flage's number one fan, but you have a big fan supporters in us over here.
Big 4 and big 2 in this game. 2 touchdowns. Shout out to Caden Durham. This one meant something to him. Obviously, his mom went to glorified track star at OU, but all the OU connections, grew up in the area, chose LSU coming out of Duncanville in Texas, out in the Dallas area. But he goes for 80 yards on 11 touches. Most notably, he broke a 50-yarder in that span that Nussmeier wasn't in the game. So, like, even though AJ Swan then had some bad throws, they kick a field goal, you at least got points. Like, they went from you were probably punting it to he broke up a 50-yarder immediately, and it was like, okay, points. And that was at a time when the game was still kind of close. So
yeah,
kudos to Caden Durham on a spectacular year. Xavier Thomas was banged up tonight, clearly. But Aaron Anderson, only one catch, targeted 3 times, and he took it for 6 yards. But it doesn't matter when you take 100-yard kick return back.
Yeah, this is what we've
also
been
when Nuss was injured.
Yes, also when Nuss was injured, we had Durham stepped up, Anderson stepped up hold on, let's talk about Aaron Anderson first, because that return was incredible, and that's what we've been waiting for. Just
from Algiers to Baton Rouge,
it was Edna
from Mississippi to Mississippi, the river to the river.
It was Edna Carr, Aaron Anderson.
Yes.
That's what we had been waiting for the past 2 years. And obviously this year
we saw it at receiver all year.
Yeah, this year he had made a lot of plays, so I don't want to discredit that. But like that type of being a game breaker, like we talked about, that's what we've been kind of waiting on. And so that was really, really fun to see. Because shout out to Aaron Anderson, shout out to Xavier Thomas, these Louisiana kids that are just really, really explosive. It's really fun to watch.
Lacey caught 3 of his 5 targets. 41 yards isn't a ton, obviously, but he was wide open on one. He took it right in for a touchdown. Taylor caught 3 of his 6 targets, 28 yards. Quiet night for him. Daniels, 3 of his 5 targets he caught for 24 yards. Relatively quiet night for him. Obviously, Chris Hilton eating up 85 yards and 2 touchdowns. Kind of obviously moves into what they do normally, those other guys, but solid night all around. Pimpton 2 for 53 at a big 42-yard catch in this game, but caught both of his targets at tight end. That's good to see when we've seen a ton of Trades Green. Now you saw Pimpton. I mentioned Anderson, but the segue here I'm trying to get to, Matty B, is the receivers that I just ran down and tight ends. That's everybody who caught a pass. The running backs led the way in catches, 5 for Josh Williams, 4 for Durham. And that tells me that Nussmeier took what they were giving him on a night when he was above 70% passing. He fumbled the ball for a scoop and score on a play where it was third down and they got blitzed and gave it up. And of course, if you want to put it on whomever you can, but Nuss gets stripped there. I'll forgive him, considered that he went to the locker room and he came back and he dominated. But 22 of 31, 3 touchdowns. Seeing the praises of your man's here, Garrett Nussmeier in the final. Remember, guys, this is his 13th start. He started the bowl game, these 12 games. But what did you like tonight after a month where Nuss kind of got dragged over the coals by some folks? And rightfully so. He didn't play well in stretches.
Sure. Yeah, everything was justified. I think even getting on him, DJ Chester allowed the pressure up the middle, but again, you have to have 2 hands on the ball if you're Garrett Nussmeier. We know that at this point. And so if you want to get on him for that, I had no problems with that. The thing that had gotten me throughout the season was everyone, talking about him, questioning the toughness. And I thought just this performance, not only from him leaving the game, but him coming back and him running around, him taking what the defense gives him and then forcing the ball downfield. I just think this was the ultimate Garrett Nussmeier performance. Like, he embodied the toughness that this team showed in the last 2 games of the year. Both games absolutely put this offense on his back at times. I think he went through his progressions extremely well. Even after he came back from the injury, he didn't look panicked in the pocket. Really, he scrambled a couple times for actual yardage, which is
stadium went wild.
Which is impressive. Like, he wasn't backpedaling. He wasn't doing the things that we know he can do when he gets flustered. Even after taking a brutal sack that Campbell allowed off the edge, he sat in there and delivered throw after throw after throw and just uncorked a couple to Chris Hilton, knew where his matchups were. And this was the most surprising thing is I thought Oklahoma, the success that they had early in the game getting to Nussmeier, I thought that was just going to continue. So I give some credit to the offensive line, obviously, in cleaning that up. Josh Williams, I thought, had a couple blocks. So
he had a great block too. So did Juwan Johnson on the Aaron Anderson return.
Yeah.
They caught the 2 blocks to kind of make sure it went for a touchdown.
Yeah. So everybody stepped up in their assignments, and that was the biggest thing to me, is being able to protect Garrett. And we've seen when they protect Garrett enough, he is efficient. He has an incredible arm, and he can really just make things happen from the pocket. The questions come obviously whenever he does get pressured, like in Ole Miss and South Carolina and so on. So that was just so impressive to me for the offensive line to bounce back, and then Nussmeier to come back from the locker room and play his ass off. Just I don't want to say put the team on his back, but he put the game away. When he came back, and it was a 7-point game, I believe, when he came back, they just put the game away. And the 100%. Defense was awesome as well, but I was really I hadn't seen Nussmeier go into that mode before. I think that's the best way to say it. It felt like he was like, no, we're putting this game away. And that was awesome.
He did say after the game that he did it for the seniors, the guys who were going to play their last game. And a lot of kind of how he talked indicated that this was not the final game in Tiger Stadium he'll be playing, which I've leaned towards. I think he's coming back. So we'll get to all that later. But I do want to wrap up here the Reaction Pod Matty B by offering you this. I asked fans, and I laid out all the stats. I said, here's everything. Dig through it. What stood out in tonight's game? I'll give you some answers. You tell me what stood out maybe most. Stephen Miller mentions running backs leading the receivers in catches. We mentioned that. 4 for 4 in the red zone. Not all touchdowns, but good to see. Mm-hmm. Let's see. Weeks, Keys, and Penn be the leading tacklers. We talked about that. Nuss, no picks and 5 TDs over the final 3 games. Hilton, obviously, 100-yard kick return. Tony Thomas points out the first for LSU since 2020. 110 passing yards. Andrew Tucker said 110 passing yards while having a 50-yard completion for Oklahoma is insane. I agree. Outside of that, if you're only giving up 60 yards passing, when
On
you think
20th
like
minute.
that's your big issue.
Yeah.
On how many? 20
On
something?
20.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mentioned earlier. Outside of the 150 yarder, he was 13 of 20 for 60 yards.
Sloan Baker called great games. Nuss at 12.4 per completion's insane. Our man OP Tiger Funk, MSP, however you want to say it, no matter what site you're on here, but he said no drops at Jarrett Roser. How about that one, Matty B? No
No
drops.
drops. Yeah, that had been a problem for LSU at times. I do think, man, they tried getting CJ Daniels that touchdown,
Oh,
and
that was the other thing. Oh, that
they,
burned.
they had the fade, which I thought was a good throw, and he kind of just like tried. It was well defended. It was well defended, and he couldn't get his hands on. And then the other one was the slant, where it was tough because the linebacker was
Yeah.
in the way, so he couldn't get it where he wanted it to go. So
So
CJ
he's been
Daniels,
such an important piece, right? Coming out of
yeah,
the portal. And he went for 1,010 touchdowns last year at Liberty, and they made it a New Year's Six game. So like how and he's been productive this year, just hasn't found the end zone. He did find it, and they called Kyron Lacy for that screen
yeah,
a week or
offensive
two
pass
ago.
interference.
Yeah, right. But I thought he was going to get in the fourth quarter. I was with you, but
Well,
wasn't able to.
he
Maybe in the bowl
eclipsed
game.
he eclipsed 500 yards on the year.
Yeah, he's such a key piece, though. Regardless of stats, like
Yeah,
just what he does out there, blocking, playing every position. It. Matty B, we talked about it. It was evident in the games where he was injured and didn't play, and then when he was healthy, they're
Ole Miss.
completely different.
Yeah, yeah,
But I thought that they bring up 29 rushes to 34 passes is good balance that they established the whole time. But a bunch of people mentioned this, Doug Thomas, a number of others, which I thought stood out. 10 tackles for loss against a team that, again, ran all over Bama a week ago. And you
yeah.
stopped him 10 times in the backfield.
Let's see if I can find some of these stats that I was looking for. But yeah, that is the line of scrimmage game where they were so dominant. They were dominated against Florida. Like that number was the inverse, right? I think it was like
Yep.
13 or 11 TFLs for Florida to 1 for LSU. Like that is tackles for loss is an offensive line statistic. Or a line of scrimmage statistic, I should say. And I thought LSU's defensive line dictated everything in that game. And the linebackers obviously feasted on that as well. It helps when your defensive line, like Braden Swinson, Don McKinley, Savion Jones, and so on, have such good games. It just opens up everything for your defense. So that is, I think that's a great stat that I hadn't talked about, the tackle for loss number, because 2 weeks ago, we're sitting here saying, gosh, they had like 13 negative plays. They couldn't move the ball. They kept falling behind, so they couldn't go forward. And outside of, the fumble for 6 and the big sack that Nussmeier took, I don't remember a ton of other negative plays for LSU in this game. So I
Yeah.
do feel
10,
good about that.
10 tackles for loss for LSU, 3 for Oklahoma. That's a big
Yeah.
difference. I said turnover margin would be big. It was tied at 1-1. The scoop and score led to points.
Yeah.
I mean, this could have been a lot different, but they overcame that. A great way to finish out the year again. A little more than a week ago, there was fear that is this going to be like 6-6 and 8-4, and you're finishing atop a wild SEC where everybody beat everybody. It felt like that you. I don't want to say avoided any embarrassment, but like you're out of the spotlight, you're out of the conversation. You firmly finish in the top 6. You weren't torn apart. It was just one of those years where, yeah, you can look back and say, well, had this happened, we could be in the playoffs. Yeah, well, had this other things happened, you might not even have been at this. So solid showing at the end.
Yeah, and we go back to the USC loss is really the only differentiator between the Alabama year and because in SEC play they all have 3 losses. It's really just the USC loss that has LSU at 4. But again, my I guess fumes, the frustration for all LSU fans after the Florida loss was like, man, we have 4 losses. You're sitting here at 6-4, and Alabama and Ole Miss and all these teams are sitting here like 2 losses and they're in the playoffs. Well, now all those teams have come back down to earth as well. So now as an LSU fan, you don't feel like you're left out of the party in the same way. It doesn't feel like, oh, all these 5 SEC teams are going to be in the playoff and we're on the outside looking in. It's like the SEC just cannibalized itself. Maybe the SEC is not as good as it was supposed to be, whatever. But LSU fans, like, you end the season this way, You have a coach that has been very vocal about the portal, and we'll talk about all the future stuff as well. But in now, after these 2 games, you see the direction, you see the path forward, and you're not here as left out. Your A&M just lost again. All these teams, you are now on after this year. In terms of just the scope of this season, you are on a level playing field with them. And now it's where do you go from here? Where do you go after Bryce Hunter? Where do you go with this class? And so that's what the next couple of weeks are going to be about. Brian Kelly will continue to have a major emphasis on this bowl game as well, because he will want to say, my first 3 years, 10 wins, 9 wins. And that doesn't sound bad. And obviously the standard is higher at LSU, but you get through this year going 9-4, considering the way the SEC's played out and considering the path forward that you have in the portal and with this class, LSU fans can swallow that pill. And so now that is what is ahead for LSU in the coming weeks.
This is the best time to sign up for the Bengal Tiger. $1 will carry you all the way through portal, signing day. Signing day is Wednesday. I'll have all the DJ Pickett, Scoop, Jakeem Stewart, everything else for you. DJ Pickett, the 5-star number 1 corner commit, was in Tiger Stadium tonight, as was Patrick Peterson. We've already got tidbits up on that. We'll have Jakeem Stewart. We'll talk about keeping this top 5 class together, and then the portal. So, yeah, it'll be a busy month here. A major shout-out, Matty B, to everyone who rolled with us this year on the post-game pods. Thank y'all.
Yes.
Yeah, there's the coverage. And maybe next year we'll just start doing them live, but maybe for the final time signing off on a post-game pod, Matty B, not live, pre-recorded. And I'll give you this, as you just talked about and going into the offseason and building, Brian Kelly said tonight, he's got receipts, CBS style, lengthy. He said, quote, "We're taking receipts and we'll see you at the national championship. This team is building."
Here we go. I get my tickets. I'll get my tickets for next year's championship game, wherever it's at.
He didn't say next year, but 1 year.
Well, whenever it's coming. I'll keep buying them until they go. I get my credentials done early. But again, it's a coach that knows, I think, what he wants, and he knows what the standard is. So it's time, it's time to get serious. And we'll talk about all that on the Bengal Tiger and on the podcast and everything. So yes, subscribe over there if you have not already. But yeah, this is the last
8-4, 2 wins in a row, solid. Pesky Vandy, pesky OU, knocked them both off handily, and you finish. And we'll see where they go for a bowl. Obviously, we don't know at this stage, but we'll find out here in about a week plus. But sign us off, Matty B.
Yeah. All right.
We're not going away forever, really. We'll be back with portal pods and everything else.
We'll do a mailbag pod
for the final time on the post game pod.
Signing day is the 4th, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. We'll be right back. We'll be right
back, guys.
We'll be right back. But yeah, thank you all for joining us. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you have not already. We've got over 7K subs now, which is huge. So thank you all for that. Thank you all for the support throughout the season. And thank you all to the Bengal Tiger subscribers, as always, for interacting.
Yes, love you guys, girls.
Yes, love all y'all. But yeah, we'll be back later this week, as it's gonna be all recruiting this week, guys. I can't lie to y'all. So subscribe to the Bengal Tiger. We will talk to y'all later.